Call to order the regular meeting of the school board for Monday, August 11th, 2025. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. To invite you to stand as you're able. One A, appointment of student board member and oath of office. I'll turn this over to Dr. Brenner for the honors.
Thank you, President Berger. Michaela Sagini is back for her second year. She's starting her senior year of high school, and so we will go through the appointment and her oath of office. So I will step over to Michaela's workstation. Okay, Michaela, would you please read your oath of office?
I, Michaela Sagini, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of student representative to the School Board of Grand Forks Public School, District 1, according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you. That concludes Michaela's oath of office.
Thank you very much for serving in this way. 1B, the reading of our school board meeting norms. Mr. Clevin.
Be prepared, be on time, and I saw our meeting started exactly 6 and 24 seconds. Value and respect each other. Exercise thoughtful deliberation and conversation. Be professional at the board table and when visiting with the general public. Speak up when the norms are not being followed and advocate on behalf of students and keep the community in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Clevin. Let the record show it was 6 o'clock p.m. and 0 seconds for Verizon Standard Time. Item 2 on the agenda is the approval of our agenda. I would seek a motion to approve tonight's agenda as outlined in your board packet. It's been moved by Mr. Palmasino. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Larson. We'll take a roll call vote.
Lund?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Item 3 on the agenda, public comments. I do not have any blue public comment forms filled out. If there's any member of the public who wishes to speak, please come to the podium. Item 4, this is superintendent's recommendations for discussion. 4A, guaranteed energy savings program presentation, Mr. Brandon Bombach and I believe Mr. Jonathan Elwine and some other assorted folks, but Mr. Bombach.
Thank you, President Berger, members of the board. I'll just make way for introduction for a presentation you'll receive. Just as a reminder, the cover memo just articulates that really late 2022, the board decided to invest in the school district in a guaranteed energy savings program, which largely replaced light bulbs across the district, improved building envelope, and even HVAC and boiler efficiencies. At the same time, there were investments made into air conditioning and quality improvements across the district. So it's been a big project that has taken place over the past 2 summers, and this represents the first report that we'll receive on the energy savings associated with that project. So in front of you, Connor Daly with CMTA as an engineering firm who's really helped bring us through this project alongside Jason Splett with ICS Consulting. And of course, when it comes to any questions at the end, all 3 of us, plus Jonathan Elwine, Buildings and Grounds Director, would be happy to stand for any questions. So otherwise, I'll get out of your way, Connor.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that introduction. So Brandon gave a little bit of the background here, so we'll jump back. This project started late 2021, and just going to give a little bit of background before we get into the numbers of really why we're here, the good news of the savings that we've seen to date through the construction period, and then the first 6 months of our first year of performance after construction ended at the end of last year in November. So the first slide is kind of looking back, where did we start? So this is a breakdown of the district's utilities normalized over a 3-year period. That was 2019, 2020, 2021. So So as you can see here, spending about $1.8 million across all of the facilities in electric, gas, and water. Between Excel and NODAC, about 2/3 of your utility spend is on that electric side. So that's really where we wanted to focus. And then another 1/4 of that was spent on your natural gas. So outside of that, that's your total operating budgets. You also add in your operations and maintenance costs. So that's just fixing things, ordering new pieces of equipment, the labor to physically go in and do this. If there's any contracts from external that have to come in and fix things year after year, that's all factored into the cost to upkeep these systems. So overall, on a yearly basis, we were looking at about $2.2 million to run all of the facilities here in the district. So then what we guaranteed for the project takes that green chunk out. So for energy savings, we're guaranteeing every year, that started back in November when construction ended, of $347,000 a year. O&M savings, that's your operations and maintenance, so cutting that down by $32,000 a year, so that total savings is $380,000 a year. That's what we were predicting and guaranteeing through this contract. So that lowers your total operating budget to about $1.5 million, plus the $350,000 left over for operations and maintenance. So a quick cover of what went on. I know Brandon gave a high level of what we did. This is a quick list of all the buildings that we touched and what we did in each of those facilities. So LED lighting, replacing all of the lights across the district that weren't LED already to a new LED. That actually includes this building and this room. So pretty much everywhere across the district except Discovery, which was already LED. That was a relatively new building. Looking at all of your exterior doors, there were some pretty big gaps in some of those, so replacing some of the door sweeps and seals was another concern there. Did that at pretty much all of the buildings except Discovery and Mark Sanford. And then the big focus for this was really on that HVAC and adding cooling in a couple of the areas, increasing the air quality in the buildings that really needed it. So you can see in that third column, the HVAC upgrades, so full HVAC upgrades, including the addition of cooling where it was not before, at J. Nelson Kelly Elementary, Lewis and Clark Elementary, and Viking Elementary. And then a full boiler replacement at Lake Agassiz to take you off of the UND steam system, which was very, very costly and only getting more and more expensive over the years. So those are the big focuses. Everything else was to really build that project around those. And then your HVAC controls, new controls at all 4 of those buildings with the HVAC, and then commissioning at the rest of the facilities. And that's really just going into the software, so to speak, and updating it to modern standards so that it's running as efficiently as it physically can. So just a few more numbers on what that really involved. So this was $5.4 million of this was funded through the energy savings that we are seeing year over year. 12.4 was capital improvements through the previous bond sale that happened through the district. We had $0 in construction change orders for this entire $18 million project. 3 buildings to that new upgraded control systems with the HVAC, 11 buildings with new control software that I mentioned, over 325 new pieces of HVAC equipment installed across those 4 different buildings, and over 18,000 light fixtures that we renovated to LED across all of those buildings. Those energy savings are the same that we already went over, about $350,000 a year in energy, $32,000 in the maintenance costs. And really what that is equivalent to is about 2.7 million kilowatt hours. That's just the electricity you're using in the buildings, reduced year over year. That is equivalent to about 1,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide, or about 217 gas-powered vehicles that we're taking off the road every year by just lowering the utility usage at all of your facilities. And then those 2 pictures are just a couple of the pieces of equipment that we installed. A new chiller for the chilled water that's giving you the air conditioning, and then some of the new rooftop equipment at some of the schools. So these graphs are pretty standard. We've got one for each of the utilities. So that'll be electric savings for consumption. That's that kWh, the kilowatt hours. We'll have a demand, so that's your kilowatts. And then we'll have therms, that's your gas usage. This is looking at it as a whole district, so all of your buildings combined. We'll start with the 3 that are looking at the construction period, so that's July of 2023 when the major construction began, through October of 2024 when all of that construction ended. So the red line that you'll see, that's that averaged utility baseline. That's where the buildings started, all added together, that 3-year average. The black line was the guarantee, and the blue line is where we ended up. So obviously this is construction period. This is not something that's guaranteed because work is being staged throughout that almost 2-year period. So we can't really guarantee that. We don't know exactly when things are going to turn on, what their usage is going to be until we get them up and running and we get them kind of under control. But you can still see a very massive drop in that energy for the KWH over that period. For the demand, pretty much cut it in half. You can see that it started pretty much online with where it started the baseline, and around October it started to really dip down. That's when some of those new systems started to come online, really outperform the systems that were there before. But at that point we were already above that guarantee, so it's pretty much stayed there for the rest of the time, but still an 11% reduction just through that, that one period. And then gas, we actually beat the guarantee even in the construction period, so there's almost a 30% reduction in the gas usage across the district over the construction period, again, July 2023 through October 2024. So again, none of that is guaranteed. This is all kind of icing on the cake for this first year of energy performance that we see and that we're still dialing and that we're in today. So now I'll show the same 3 graphs through the first 6 months since construction ended. So going back to the first one, our kilowatt hours, that's the consumption used. You can see a little high. We had some warmer months when we started off this year, and a little bit colder in the winter as well. So a little bit of double whammy there, but still just a little bit above what we guaranteed. Again, that first year is still, these systems are new. We're still looking at these pretty regularly, making sure that we're getting them under control, making sure that they're operating at their absolute peak, but we're getting really close already. So that's 6 months in, just a little % above where we guaranteed that. Demand is the exact same story, just slightly above on that one. And gas, the month of March, April, it was when we cut off the 6 months, and that's actually right when we meet the guarantee. So hopefully for the rest of the year, as we continue to track these bills, that'll drop below, just like we saw in the construction period. So how does that equate to the numbers? What we actually see on the utility bill at the end of the day, and what you're saving. So up at the top, the construction costs, those savings during that construction period, again, none of that is guaranteed, it's just the icing on the cake. So for the consumption, your KWH, we saw $186,000 reduced compared to that 3-year average baseline starting off. The demand of about $50,000 below that baseline, and then natural gas about $175,000 below that baseline for that period. So before we even finished construction, we'd already saved about $412,000 compared to what the buildings were paying before the construction ever started. Looking into now the second part, that first 6 months of where we've been since November of last year when construction ended and we started tracking this on the actual performance. So our consumption is up to about $75,000 through that first 6-month period. Demand about $33,000 and natural gas of about $115,000. So that's totaling $256,000. I will just point out over to the side there, that does include the $32,000 of the maintenance, that operation and maintenance savings. It's just that's not as easy to track on like a bill. That's a stipulated value in our contract, but that's also added in there to get up to $256,000 to date. So from where we started in the summer of '23 till today, we've saved $668,000. Our guarantee for this first year period is $347,000. So we've already exceeded that to date by $320,000. So that is not a success for me. That is not a success for CMTA. That is not a success for ICS. That is a success for the school district, for Grand Forks Public Schools. And that's what we're really here to celebrate today and talk about, even though we're only halfway through this first year. The next slide here, just a quick overview of kind of leading into the slide after this, just to explain EUI. EUI is a metric that we use to compare buildings to each other. Obviously, buildings can be very different size, be used for very different purposes. So it can be really hard to compare those apples to apples. So EUI stands for Energy Use Intensity or Energy Use Index. Really all that's saying is it takes everything inside your building that uses any sort of energy, whether that's electricity, gas, whatever. It boils them all down to the exact same units of kBTUs, divides that by your square footage of the building over the course of 1 year, so you can see like an energy intensity per square foot of the building, so you can compare different types of buildings to each other. And that's what this graph shows, is the orange bars, this is all the buildings that we touched. The far right of this graph is the total project, what the district looks like combined. But the orange bar is where we started. That's that 3-year baseline average per building. The gray bar is where we were during the construction period, and then the green bar is where we are so far through that first 6 months. So a few of those went up, a few of those went down compared to construction. That's pretty normal. We still have 6 months more of data that we need to gather and fine-tune these buildings, like I said. But overall, really, really good progress here. The few numbers that I have kind of highlighted point out the really big successes across the district. So the Central High School gym building, the newer part of the building, there's a 39% reduction over that baseline data that we started at. Discovery Elementary School, being a newer building, already saw 36, and all we really touched there was some controls, tweaking how we're running that just to make it a little bit more efficient. We've seen 36% reduction of energy there, 32% at Elroy Schrader Middle School, and then South Middle School being our really big winner of 43% reduction compared to where it started. With a total project, so the entire district seeing a reduction of energy usage of 29% since we started back in 2023. The last 2 slides I really have here is more just a visual representation to kind of see, we like to say these projects are kind of resetting the clocks on your existing buildings and your systems. So this is our standard, what we call a red, yellow, green chart. Green is saying that whatever that system is at that building is good to go. It's going to last a good 10 plus more years potentially. No worries really there unless something really bad happens. Yellow says it's getting close to its end of its useful life. It might need to be changed in the next 5 or so years, but it should still be okay for now. Red is it is done. It should be replaced. It's going to cause some issues here, either now or within the next foreseeable future. So this is where we started. A lot of yellow, a lot of red. This is what the district looked like back in 2021. And this is what it looks like today after our project. And this is, I will say, just including the project that I've talked about. Obviously, the district has had a lot of other things that have gone on across all of the buildings since 2021. So there's probably a lot more green on this than I can show, but I'm just going to show what I physically had a say in and touched here. But you can see just flipping back and forth through some of these, adding a lot more green to that, resetting that clock so that those buildings have a new 20-year lifespan plus that you hopefully really won't need to do much effort to them other than changing some filters, routine maintenance. And again, want to point out that this does include adding systems that were not previously in place at 3 of those schools. So air conditioning where it wasn't before, and by adding air conditioning, we're still lowering that utility use and cost and making the learning environment, the teaching environment much better through that indoor air quality. And that's really all I have today. So again, really just wanted to be here to kind of share the success that this project has been for all of you. I mean, $600,000 plus over the last year and a half, 2 years is a huge success. That's all money going back into your budget. That excess savings is all kept within Grand Forks Public Schools. That's nothing that we get any sort of cut of. That is entirely for you to keep in your budget and use for other projects and to tighten that budget up more. So really just here to share the good news with everybody. We'll be back in 6 months again to share the full first year, and then 1 year after that just to keep updating on what it looks like. But any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions from board members? Dr. Lund?
I'd just like you to respond. I've heard in public, not only from the public, but also from some district employees, where you're saving money because you're turning the heat down in the winter and the air conditioning other times they're up, and that's why you're saving money. Could you comment that that's not what we've done?
Yeah, so what we like to do in these projects is we come in and we make existing systems as efficient as they can be, and then if we're replacing systems, we're giving you state-of-the-art technology with the best design. We regularly design net zero schools, really highly efficient buildings. but we are not here to be the police of how you operate those buildings. We are using that 3-year averaged baseline for that exact reason, so that we can take out any of those abnormalities. If it's an extra hot summer, extra hot winter, extra cold summer. We don't want to make any changes to what we're seeing. We want to just build that in. And all we're really doing is just making things run as efficiently as possible. The way that the school district has always run their buildings is how they're going to continue to run it. It's not my decision. It's going to be the Buildings and Grounds Department that's really making those decisions, and we've not changed any of that. We give guidance and say, hey, it might be more efficient if you were to run it this way, but we are not here to tell you to run it that way. We are going to base all of our guarantees off of the way that you're running it today with a few tweaks to make it more efficient. So maybe we'll have things run a few less hours if people aren't in the building, but physically changing the temperatures, we're not going to be in here saying, no, you can only heat it to 68. If you want to heat it to 74, that's fine. It just changes the way that we look at our savings calculations before we ever start the project. So we have all those conversations up front, and then that's built into how we build our projects.
Other questions from board members? Mr. Clevin?
Is there, Central Pool hasn't been operating for most of this analysis period. Can that potentially skew what we're seeing from Central?
Yes, so that's actually one of the few things that we will go back and do what's called a baseline adjustment. It's something that we try to never do if we don't have to. A lot of times you will see in similar projects, companies like to go and do that for those weather things that I was talking about. If you have really hot winters, if you have really cold summers, or the opposite, that can skew data. That's why we do that averaging, but we have it set in there. If you add a full addition to a building, or if you fully turn off a part of a building, or if you are adding new systems in that weren't there before, that is a change of use type, which will skew that data, and then we'll remodel based on whatever that change is, and just change the numbers in the calculation, and that's all that happens. So knowing that that pool went back into operation, we actually just did a single model for the addition of that pool, and the equipment that we were shared was being put back in place for that. Added that to the already operating systems that we knew were there, and just slightly upped where that building started, and then subsequently we're not affecting the way that any of that pool equipment is being run. That's been installed after the project's finished. So we just increased whatever our guarantee was by the exact same amount. So the amount saved is going to stay exactly the same. We just moved both of those bars a little bit north.
And then looking back at the scope of work matrix for the buildings that were included, there's like E1, G1, H1, H2, C1, C2. So the matrix isn't all filled out, obviously. So how was it determined which buildings received each of these scopes of work? Like, what was the process to define that?
Yeah, so when we're first selected, and I'll just say too, the E, G, H, E is electrical, G is general trades, H is mechanical, HVAC. And then, yeah, the grid is just showing where that happened. That's all based off of the first thing that happens when we are selected to do the project back in 2021, is we come through and we audit every one of the buildings holistically. So we go through with my full engineering team. That includes full lighting specialists and designers, HVAC specialist designers, electrical specialist designers, everybody that we can get. They come and we literally walk every square foot of every building. We look at every light. We get all the counts exactly right. We get as best engineering understanding of what's physically there, how it's being run. We look through the control system, how it's being operated. We look through all of the utility bills and how those are being operated, compile all of that data together to give us kind of a roadmap of saying, okay, what has the highest EUI? That's immediately going to be a place that we're going to look at first. Again, like for LED lighting, for instance, anywhere that LED lighting doesn't exist when we start, we'll have it at the end. So that one's pretty easy. Anything that doesn't have it gets it. Same thing for like that exterior door seal type thing. It's really just looking at the physical state of each building and saying, that door right there needs that. There's some gaps around it that's causing hot air to come in the summer or cold air in the winter. That should be sealed up. So things like that get immediately called out. The rest of it is more on our engineering team looking at the needs that we see when we're doing those audits and saying, okay, we saw, I think originally we actually designed 5 buildings to potentially get the HVAC renovations. And then we decided after the fact, we sent those out for bids and costs. And then with the board, we actually decided which buildings, based on those costs, how many can we do with the budget we have, which ones are the highest priorities that we see in conjunction with the highest priorities of the school district, so that we're really putting the money, at the end of the day, we're still consultants. So it's Grand Forks' project. You get to decide what you're doing with that money. We're just consulting you and hopefully giving you the best path forward there. So we originally designed 2 other schools. I believe Wilder was one of them, and that got dropped. And I don't remember what the other one was, but I think there was one other. But it was just, again, a decision between us and the school district of where is the highest need, what schools actually need it, where should we put that money.
Other questions, Mr. Palmasino?
Yeah, maybe it's for Brandon or Jonathan. When the new valley comes in play, will that be put into this system? And will they have a chance to make sure that the new systems are dialed in correctly and everything else?
Yeah, Board Member Palmasino, that was largely set aside from this project scope because we knew it was coming. And so as much as the existing building at Valley could probably benefit from a program like this, it was ignored knowing a new school building was coming. So Connor and his team won't go through that building at that time, but with the new commissioning of the building, the same level of detail will be attended to it.
Other questions from board members? Yes, Ms. McKinney?
I noticed that some of the schools that were in the red at the beginning of the 6 months were still in the red at the end. So is that just something that takes time, or are you like not focusing on those ones as much?
Yeah, so it's exactly that. So again, there's always a budget. There's a max amount of money that can be used and saved. So that kind of came back to a portion of that being that breakdown of the funding sources up front. We could fund up to that $5.2 million through the energy saved from the needs that we saw in the district by changing out the lights, by sealing up the exterior of the buildings better, by making the control systems more efficient. You're going to save that amount of electricity, that amount of gas. That's going to equate to some amount of money, which is that $350,000. That over 15 years can only pay for so much, and then we had the bond to pay for the rest of it. But there's still a limit there. We only had about $13 million, and we were allowed to use about 12 of that. And if we really wanted to, we would have been great to come through and really take care of all of that red, but that's harder said than done when it comes to the actual financial parts of it. So we were focusing on, first thing is the biggest needs, resetting the clock on those existing buildings that really needed it the most. I know the biggest driver of the 3 that we chose was actually that indoor air quality. We had a lot of failed systems, so we weren't getting fresh air into the building, and they also didn't have cooling in the building. So that was another focus of this project, was to add that cooling in. When you're adding a lot of big mechanical like that, it gets very expensive, so it just limits the size of the project. So yeah, ideally we would have liked to address a lot more of the red that's still on here, but the big stuff, that central plant heating, the central plant cooling, those are the bigger heavy metal things that are the really expensive parts. You can see they're pretty much all green at this point, so that's a really good place for the district to be starting at. And then the air distribution, that's the next heaviest metal, the more expensive parts. That's just setting up the district again with that extra money that we're saving every year to start putting into other projects and start being a lot easier to tackle the rest of the work that needs to be done.
Other questions, Dr. Lund?
I just wonder if Jonathan or Brandon would like to comment about that last discussion we just had.
Yeah. Mr. Elwine?
Thank you, President. President Berger. Yeah, as you can see, there are some red on here. One notable one is Schrader. We are aware of the limitations of Schrader's HVAC system, and we're trying to come up with a larger scale plan for that. The issue is it did not fit in this project because of the high cost. Some other ones on here, Central and Red River, as you can see, there's kind of a gradient there. They're such large schools that we replaced portions of it and upgraded it, but just to do the whole school would just not be feasible. But we do have a plan going forward to look at those HVAC units, to look at the air distribution units, and to replace and repair them as necessary. I guess I would stand for any other questions. I'm trying to look on here. This isn't my presentation, so.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is just to point out that there is a plan for some of these things.
Yes.
We all want the Taj Mahal to move into our house the first year, but sometimes it takes a while to get everything you want. And so that there is a plan, and you've got things organized in a logical fashion for this.
Yeah, and that kind of ties back to my facilities condition and report, as well as we're going to come to the Finance Committee and then the board with a 5-year facilities plan this fall. So we'll have a little more concrete numbers and plans going at that point, and then we'll be able to discuss that and fine tune that. Any other questions?
Yeah, Ms. Flynn?
I'm just curious how some of the safety and security projects may or may not have impacted this in either which way.
The safety and security project should affect this pretty minimally. We'll have to probably go back and do some baseline adjustment on Wilder, but maybe Lewis and Clark. But outside of that, the actual adds are so minimal that we're either just not adding equipment, but just changing how it's set up, or just adding such a minimal amount of equipment. It's not going to be that large of an effect.
True. Okay.
Other questions from board members? Yeah, Mr. Clevin?
So EUI is kind of the metric to use to compare buildings. So looking at the kind of the project aggregate, where does our EUI fit into, and it's a dangerous word to use to say typical school district, but start with something simple. How's this EUI look to what Twining will be?
Yeah, so right now the district is sitting just above a 60. I want to say it's like a 63. Considering the amount of square footage and what we actually were able to touch on the big holistic side of things with full HVAC renovations, that's pretty good. That's pretty much in line with most of the bigger districts that we do projects with kind of across the country, regardless of climate zone or where it really lands. That goes from East Coast to West Coast, all the way northern border to southern border. That's probably in the top 20-30% of the districts that we really touch. That's a pretty good outcome for the size of this project. Twining, I'm actually not a part of that project team. And that EUI, I will say, just includes the buildings that are shown. So like Ben Franklin, for instance, that has a newer HVAC system, does not factor into that as well, because that wasn't in my project. The new Valley is not factored into that, the old, or obviously the new one, since it's not finished yet. This is just the buildings that we touched, so that we can kind of give a good idea of the impact the actual project had to the buildings that it was touching. And mostly just because, we knew Twining was going away to be replaced. We knew that Valley was going away to be replaced, and what that time frame really looked like was kind of hard to judge. But I do know both of those were higher EUI users that, because we knew that they were going away within the first 5 years, decided not to put any capital into them.
Thank you.
Other questions from board members? Anything else? Mr. Elwine?
I'm going to bring you back up on this. Something I just wanted to talk about was, so we talk a lot about the energy usage in here. Something that Connor didn't talk about that he helped us with was not only taking advantage of reducing that energy, but increasing our power factor and taking advantage of a lower utility cost. So I don't know, you can probably explain it a little better. Yeah, so there's obviously a lot more details into what all this project really entailed. There's a lot of small things that also go in to make these buildings as efficient, but also as cheap to run as possible. Those kind of go hand in hand. So a few of the other things that we did, there's something called power factor. This is a very technical electrical engineering type thing that really looks at what we like to say in the industry, how dirty the power is. That can come from having a lot of old equipment in your building that's using it really inefficiently. That can cause your power to be what we say is dirty. Or it can be physically fed into the building from your utility company as dirty, just due to losses and issues with the transmission lines, whatever it happens to be. The problem is certain utility companies, Xcel being one of them, does punish customers for having really low power factors. So they're basically saying, hey, you're trying to draw more power because you're not using it as efficiently, so we're going to punish you for that. So we put in a few pieces of equipment actually after construction was done when I was tracking the bills, and this was on our cost as well, just because it was like, hey, we see this is only going to help this project. It's a cheap ad. We're going to take care of it, just help you out.
And that was putting in a couple capacitor banks at 3 of the buildings that took these power factors from, I don't know, they were in the 60%, so you want them to be north of 90%. One is 100% efficient, so you can't really get to full 100%, but you can get 98, 99%. So these capacitor banks, piece of equipment that just ties into the wall, connects right into the main power distribution for the building. It, within the second of turning it on, goes from 60% all the way up to 90 plus. So just putting those in, an instant thing, they all paid for themselves within 2 years, which is very, very good for projects like these. And then that immediately, without saving any electricity, making anything more efficient in the building, just making your power cleaner, actually lowered the bills at those 3 buildings. But I think it's going to total out to be probably about $10,000 to $20,000 a year. We have obviously only a few months into that, so we're not exactly sure what the total number is going to be yet. It's just calculations, but that's an add-on that we're seeing. And then additionally, on top of that, once the project was completed, we also look at all of the rate structures buildings are on before we do a project to see, hey, is there maybe a potential that they're on not the best rate for the amount of electricity that they use? Same goes for gas. That way, that's a free thing you can do if you talk to your utility company and they're willing to do that. You can just change the rate structure. It's just literally changing how they're charging you on paper. And you can use the exact same amount of electricity or gas, but if the rate's cheaper, you're paying less money for it. When we looked at the beginning of the project, none of the buildings really applied for that. We looked again once the project was completed back in November, and there were a couple of schools, 5 actually, that could benefit from switching to a different rate structure. We talked to Excel, signed a contract with them that just said, hey, we're willing to switch over to this, and that's going to save another $20,000+ a year without saving any more electricity. So again, just boosting that budget, helping the project as a whole with things that cost us $0. So again, just something to help the financials of the project, the financials of the district, and just to make this more of a success for you all.
Other questions from board members? Just like to say thank you for your presentation tonight, for your time and attention, your expertise, all of the layers behind the scenes to make this a success. Reminder for board members, this was just under discussion and not action, and so no further energy, if you'll pardon the pun, is required on this item. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks to all of you for having us. We're happy to have done this project with you and for you. We see this as a big success so far. Hopefully you all see it that way too. And again, we'll be back 6 more months from now to give you the full update on this first year.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. 4B, Finance Committee report. We'll start with Mr. Palmasino.
I got it. I'm just slow. We did have a meeting and we talked about a change order. It was a smaller change order for $125,545. And if you looked at the information, it mainly went towards the some irrigation systems, upgrading pumps, and raising the height of backstops. What they did when they originally designed the backstops, they designed to the original ones that were there, and the fall balls went into the park. Well, now the fall balls will be going into North 20th Street, so we figured we better have a little higher backstop. So we did okay that, and I think it's under the total cost. But I think what I would like to do is ask Jonathan, if you remember off the top of your head, just give us an update on where we are on our contingencies, because I think we're sitting in just a rough idea. I should have asked you before, but we're sitting very well at Valley with only 4 months left of construction.
Yeah, we're sitting very well. You're going to ask me off the top of my head, so don't hold me to this, but rough order of magnitude, we're about $600,000 still left in owner contingency, about $1.1 million left in contractor contingency, and I believe we have about close to $400,000 left in allowances as well. So we're doing really well. Just a reminder that we do still have to tear down the old Valley, so we may use up some of those through that, but we're in a really good spot right now.
But I think the other thing we can talk about how well we're doing is this is change order number 12. I mean, it's really small for the size of projects, counting what we did. So I congratulate your team on how you're running this and is continue to do that, please.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it is a bit of a unique project as we came in so far under that. We added on things as well. And this is a change order that was a result of that add-on. Just to talk about that a little bit, it's as we added things, we added a bunch of things and we're finding things as we build that maybe we missed in adding that. Like this, for example, we added irrigation to soccer fields and the football fields as well as the things around the building. And we found out that we simply don't have enough pressure from city water to run that irrigation. So it's this booster pump, it's the piping for that, and the electrical is the majority of that. And the other piece, the other large piece is we decreased the spacing on the stage just so we were able to drive a lift on there. We found before that we wouldn't be able to drive a lift on there to change light bulbs or do any work. So that was a good catch actually by our construction team, and we reduced that so we can use our equipment safely and properly. Any other questions?
First of all, any other comments from other Finance Committee members? Questions from board members? Yeah, Mr. Clevin.
So you referenced several pots, at least 2 pots of contingency money. This change order is coming out of owner contingency?
Correct, because that was our ask afterward to add that irrigation, and it wasn't spec'd properly.
Okay.
Other questions from board members? Any final comments, Mr. Elwine?
I just thank you all for your support, and this is a fantastic project, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. And just a reminder, as it states in the memo, but just so the public is aware, the Finance Committee has the authority by the board to approve these change orders, so no action is required. This was just discussion and update. Move on to 5. These are now recommendations for action. 5A is our consent agenda. I would seek a motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined in your packet. It's been moved by Mr. Anderson and a second by Mr. Manley. We'll take a roll call vote.
Hodak?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 5B, contracted staff resignation and release from contract. This is for Evan Peterson. Dr. Brenner.
Thank you, President Berger. In front of you, you have a memo from me. North Dakota Century Code 15.1-09-33 provides authority for the school board to act on employment contracts for the school district personnel. Attached, you'll find a resignation letter from Evan Peterson, Dean of Students at Valley Middle School, effective August 15th, 2025. And the administrative recommendation is to grant Mr. Peterson release from his 2025-26 teaching contract effective August 15th, 2025, with the enforcement of liquidated damages under policy DKBB. You'll see the letter of resignation from Mr. Peterson, and he has filled out the form DKBB E, and he understands that there are liquidated damages at 3%, which would be a total of $1,851.18. So the administrative recommendation is to grant Mr. Peterson release from his contract in enforcing the liquidated damages. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Brenner? Would seek a motion to grant Mr. Peterson release from his 2025-26 teaching contract effective August 15th, 2025, with the enforcement of liquidated damages as outlined under policy DKBB. It's been moved by Mr. Larson. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Dr. Lund. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Flynn? Larson?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 5C, consideration of proposals for food service beverages. Mr. Bombach.
Thank you, President Berger, members of the board. Thank you, Brady, most of all. Just wanted to highlight here that North Dakota Century Code does require a bid process if you're anticipating or exceeding the threshold of $50,000 for products or services, and this is the case as it relates to our child nutrition or food service beverages. You can see this is a little bit unique from some of the other ones you've seen because it's a line item bid. So we got 2 responses, one from Pepsi, one from Coke, with a lot of like and similar products. And you can see with the attachment highlighted in yellow is the recommended suggested per product type. So you find that product type on the rows. As you move further to the right, you'll see the price quoted from the first of Pepsi and the second per Coke. And so it kind of goes back and forth just a little bit here. Myself and Wendy Mankey had gone through this to make these recommendations. You can see that the overall recommended action is to select the beverage products according to the attached bid summary form. And then I did add a little bit more detail here of the actual product types as to clarify any confusion on that. Happy to stand for any questions.
Questions from board members for Mr. Bombach? I just have one for clarification, so I don't assume. These companies submit bids with the understanding that some products may be selected and others not. In other words, the price doesn't change if you're not completely exclusive to one or the other. This is a typical situation for these requests.
Yes, I think it's incumbent upon us to articulate that and disclose that in the upfront, which is what we did, so it was absolutely understood.
Other questions? Mr. Clevin?
Has it always been a line item selection like this?
Board Member Clevin, I don't know that answer. I think it's been a few years since we've actually bid or selected. And so as Wendy and I went through this, it was one of the first line item selections or types of process that we followed, which I understand she had gotten that from peer districts.
That's a good idea.
Other questions from board members? Seeing none, I would seek a motion to approve these selected beverage products according to the attached bid summary form. I don't need to list them all, but as outlined in the packet. It's been moved by Mr. Clevin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Hodek. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Larson.
Yep.
Palmasino.
Yes.
Clevin.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Manley.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hodak.
Yes.
Flynn. Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 5D, policy review. As you can see in your packet, the Policy Review Committee met, had a lengthy discussion about lots of policies, and so I'll turn it over to Dr. Hodek first. She chaired the meeting on August 4th, which was a week ago today.
Thank you, President Berger. First of all, I'd like to just give a good shout out to Cindy because I was so impressed with what she's done. I think she navigates well what Grand Forks District policy is versus what the law is versus what the North Dakota School Boards Association is telling us that we should be doing, whether it's recommendations and such. And I think that it just plays, that she does really well to work with the administration and the leaders so that I just was very, very much impressed with that first meeting that we had. Even though we had 22 policies, or I hope I got that number right, to go through and everything else. And I would also say and commend that the administrative team as well as then with President Berger and Dr. Lund and myself, we had some pretty good discussions on all of these as well. So I think with President Berger's support and Dr. Lund, they will add as we go comments, but I think it's been decided that we will look at each policy separate, as it's stated in the memo that we are hoping to adopt the following policies as written or as amended on a first reading, which would be tonight then, and waive the second reading. So that would be our process, and I would just ask you to go to your notes. Correct? That's what we're looking at, how to do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, before we get to the first of many policies, anything to add, Dr. Lund?
I would just say the reason most of these are being expedited is because they became state law on August 1st. So it's a time factor more than anything, so we don't delay it any further. So, just so people understand why.
Yes, I appreciate that, and I would just add one thing on the other side of it is with school starting, wanting to get policies in place for onboarding of employees, for building level administration, for staff, for students, for families. Some of these impact families, students more directly than others, but in a very real sense, time is of the essence. And so we'll I'm sure have some robust conversation about some of these, but we'll just take beginning with ACG. As you can see, in all of these cases, we're seeking a motion to adopt these as written or amended. So this would be as written. This is a new policy, and you'll see later on in the packet. Then we'll rescind, assuming this passes. There's a policy to rescind 5640, but that's coming later. So we'll just take these one at a time. And I guess I could stop here and say, unless there's another preferred method to just pull out policies and take the rest as a batch, but I don't want to gloss over these either. So perhaps before I seek the first motion, any other comments in general from board members about the best way to proceed? Comments about the work of the Policy Review Committee? Yeah, Ms. Flynn?
I just have a question about the process. I think previously the committee has made a motion or brings the first motion, and then there's a second, and then we have discussion. Is that how we're going to do that tonight?
Certainly can be. Yeah, my more broad question was whether as a board you wish to go in order 1 through 20 whatever individually, or at the front end lift up certain policies to remove from, let's say, the bulk. But I'm happy to do this either way. So I don't know what common practice has been. Dr. Lund, do you remember?
Yeah, that's
So I guess that's what we were looking for, is direction from the board then. As we've been saying, we could take each one individually, or if there's just some ones that we want to just pull out and focus on those, and then take a motion to do a batch approval of the others.
I personally specifically would like to have more discussion on board member compensation.
And that is which policy? Is it
Sorry.
That would be
BBD?
Yeah.
BDD.
Okay. Some of the other ones, I'm fine with batch, but that was one that I had.
Sure. Well, how about, since there's some of each, I'll make a motion that we adopt policy ACG as written. Is there a second? Been seconded by Dr. Lund. Is there any discussion or other illuminating comments from the review committee about policy ACG? Take a roll call vote.
Clevin. Yes. Manley.
Yes.
Hodak.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Palmasino. I didn't hear Palmasino.
Yes.
Thank you. Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. I would make a motion that we adopt ABAD as amended and GACA as written, considering they both deal with virtual school and virtual instruction. We have a second by Dr. Lund. Any discussion or conversation about ABAD or GACA? Yes, Mr. Clevin?
On ABAD, there's the added language about students can enroll in these schools through open enrollment. So how all-encompassing is that open enrollment? Like, are we talking anybody can enroll to any virtual school anywhere? Or is it limited to GFPS? I'd just like a little explanation on that.
Absolutely. Dr. Glatch?
Yes, great question. So really, open enrollment laws are only restricted by the timeline. So by March 1st, students can apply for open enrollment. So there's an opportunity here for us to attract students from the region and perhaps even farther, since it's a virtual option instead of somebody who typically open enrolls today comes from like Emerado or a surrounding community and they drive themselves here. So my understanding is the sky's the limit here, or the cloud's the limit.
And is that language like statutory, if you will, like we're being governed by some state code or statute? Or is this a policy we're creating for ourselves?
We already have a policy around open enrollment, but it also is guided by DPI.
And in this open enrollment's kind of consistent in phrasing to physical attendance at a school.
Similar but different, because when somebody, like to date, before we had the virtual high school option, students had to be in an area in which they could drive themselves here physically. And again, my understanding is that that restriction is no longer in place for the virtual enrollees.
My questions are really not even questioning the policy. I'm trying to come to terms with what this means, like in the great big picture of attending school. You know, frankly, I have misgivings about virtual school, and I'm just trying to get a handle of my own self. Like, does this policy make that, does it make it easier to go anywhere to school? So I appreciate the patience as I literally think this through as I ask questions.
Great question. We had that discussion at the committee level. Dr. Lund, do you want to touch on that?
I'm just wondering if Mr. Cleven's referring to the virtual instruction, the next policy, versus the virtual school.
Yeah, to be fair, I did make a motion to both of those thinking they were
But
near enough alike.
I'm wondering if answering his question, maybe Dr. Galatz, would be, it's revolve around the virtual instruction as well.
Yeah, I think we're maybe crossing lines. So open enrollment is when a student outside of our geographically zoned area applies for enrollment in our district. The other policy talks about students who want to take courses through the North Dakota Center for Distance Ed. Is that what you're referencing, Dr. Lund? And that applies to students within our district who have that enrollment option as part of their current course of studies. Not the same thing. They're not the same thing.
Any other discussion, questions, comments about A, B, A, D, and GACA? And my apologies if putting them together was more problematic than helpful. Ms. Flynn?
Would the purpose of virtual school be that it's all or nothing? Like someone can't do a hybrid, I'm going to take a couple here and there and then go in person and...
That is correct. It's an all or nothing proposition. The only exception that we've made is that if a student is engaged in music courses, it's not possible for us to replicate that any place in the world of online, so we have made that accommodation. I don't know that there's more than one student who's taking advantage of that, however, who has registered for enrollment in virtual school.
Can they also do like sports in person?
They have to remain eligible.
Okay.
But they would be assigned to their home campus for that.
So it's similar structure and setup to how homeschool students currently operate, that we allow them to do like a music and sports involvement or extracurricular?
Correct, yes, with the limitation to homeschooled students can really enroll in any class as long as there's space in that class from our entire course catalog.
Okay. And difference there.
Yeah, and we may broaden it. We've already had preliminary discussions, for example, with Director Ripley about the CIA. So some of those other classes, such as autos, things of that nature that would be difficult to even come close to replicating online. We may open that up in the future, but right now we're just getting off the ground.
Other questions, comments from board members? Again, the motion on the floor is to approve ABDA as amended and GACA as written. We'll take a roll call vote.
Manley?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. I would move that we adopt policy ABEA as amended.
Second.
Second by Dr. Hodak. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Flynn?
Are we adding a committee to the board since it says board committee now rather than superintendent committee?
Yes is the answer.
So Cindy will have to send out a new committee assignment email. Okay.
Yes, so there'll be a process through which we'll select.
I'm just going to say I see Bill riding his bike in my neighborhood every night, so he might be a good candidate.
You do know what happens, Board Member Flynn, to those who volunteer others, right? Any other questions about policy ABEA? Mr.
So
Clevin?
what was the reasoning to make that now be a board committee? Like, that seems like a pretty big change of structure.
So someone from the policy committee want to detail our conversation?
Basically, when you're talking about the district as a whole, wellness policy, instead of just leaving groups of people or out, we discussed it, and it's recommended that it is a committee from the North Dakota School Boards Association. It was put into as also, if you went back to the legislature and their actions, that they talked about it as well too. So I think those were the reasons that we said, no, we weren't looking for one more thing to do. We were looking more for involvement and engagement from others as well, hearing their voices.
Other questions from board members? Mr. Clevin?
Just follow up on that. So we're obligated to make that a board committee?
Just 1 second. Give me a second. Give me a second.
So if I understand the nomenclature, and Cindy, please correct us, the blue, at least as we were given at the committee level, was that these changes were required. Is that correct? Let's wait for Cindy's response.
Pardon me. Yes, that is correct. The blue is new, the red strike through is coming out, and I'm just checking the law here for answering that question. It's going to take me a minute. Can we come back to it?
Yeah, while Cindy's taking a look at the state law, we'll just come on back to this. I am aware that there's a motion on the floor, but I want to get an answer to the question before we vote. I believe that if the person who made the motion and the second are amenable to holding off on a vote, just to pause, that we're able to do that. And I certainly am, because I want to make sure Board Member Clevin's question is answered. And the second on this particular motion was, does anyone remember? Was it Dr. Hodek? Okay. Are you all right with pausing on that until we hear back from Cindy?
This was amended from the North Dakota School Board Association per legislative action.
The board committees, not legislative action.
Yeah.
So,
Are you all right pausing, or do you want to?
no, I just wanted to make that comment.
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to do both.
Okay. Let me just set this off to the side. While they're digging into that, because again, I don't want to move forward without the information coming to light. So we'll move on. This is now, I'll make a new motion that we adopt policy FFI, which is, again, renamed and amended on first reading and waive the second reading. Policy FFI. Do I have a second? Been seconded by Mr. Manley. Is there any discussion, comments, or questions from board members? Yes, Dr. Lund?
I'm just a little concerned if we have Cindy doing one thing, she's supposed to be doing a second thing. So I'm a little concerned about how we're doing this. Because she's trying to get us some information, yet we're moving on, and I don't think we can do that with her.
Sure. No, I understand that. Perhaps we, at least if any of us on the Policy Review Committee just want to share thoughts about this conversation or just to bring some light to FFI. Yep, Dr. Glatch, do you have something?
Well, I do have Cindy's notes going back to the wellness policy.
Oh.
ABEA.
Okay, so for the sake of avoiding confusion, let's move back. Dr. Glatch, if you have something to add on ABEA.
Well, Cindy, if I may, I have your notes in front of me here. So the way it reads is that it says, when this policy was first adopted, language was amended in the first and second paragraphs from the board to the superintendent and from the district wellness committee to the child nutrition director, mostly because the board's delegation would elevate the district wellness committee subject to open meeting law, and because the child nutrition director has working knowledge of the school meals and snack requirements. The director, Wendy Menke, feels the committee should be a district committee comprised of district staff and possibly wellness-focused community members, and she stated that she does not have the time necessary to implement all of the provisions from the policy. That is an aside thing. So really, it was just about the operations and whether or not it would be fall into open meeting, is my understanding.
And this change would require this to be open meetings, publicly announced. Okay.
Just like our committee meetings.
If I may,
Yep, please.
when we first adopted the policy, it came to us in the category from the School Boards Association as a required policy. In their policy structure, a required policy, we are not to change. It's based on several different areas of law and practice and lawsuits. We don't know always to what part of the policy that applies. The change that's coming now is changing it back to the original required language and after consultation with Wendy Menke in terms of just who forms that committee. There are 6 different laws, both federal and state, that are referenced, but it will just take me too long to read all of them.
Well, I think you had me when you said it came from our nutrition director. So, thank you.
Other questions or comments on ABEA? Dr. Lund?
Just a generic comment about all these. This comes from the North Dakota School Board Association, which has a cadre of attorneys who have expertise in school law, state, federal, and so I have a tendency to trust but verify, I guess. But they're the experts, and I think they've come up with a pretty good policy.
Other questions or comments from board members on ABEA? We'll take a roll call vote.
If I could just confirm on ABEA, the motion is by President Berger and the second is by
Dr.
Dr.
Hodak.
Hodak.
That's correct.
Thank you. Anderson?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Palmasino? Larson?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes. With an apology that I belabored the discussion.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Make a motion that we adopt policy FFI as amended. It's been seconded by Mr. Manley.
Pardon me, I already had a motion on that one with you making the motion and Manley seconding that.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's correct. Any comments or questions from board members on FFI, which is now renamed to Personal Electronic Communication Devices Prohibition During Instructional Time? Mr. Clevin?
And I'll assume this is all driven to comply with our recent legislative assembly.
That's correct. Yeah, this was emailed from NDSBA back in June. The law took effect on August 1st. Any other comments or questions, Dr. Hodak?
Just an extra comment that, reading through it, and it's very detailed. It's something that we're going to want every parent, every student, every employee to make sure that they've read and understand it, especially when you look at the enforcement provisions regarding employee expectations and disciplinary measures. We talked about that they may be subject to discipline up to and including termination. So we weighed this one heavily in our discussion.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Dr. Brenner?
Yeah, I think it's good for the board to know that Dr. Galach has staffed this with middle school and high school principals and Mr. Bakke with elementary principals relative to implementation and how it's going to look at each of our campuses. And it's important that we have consistency from building to building and classroom to classroom. Thank you.
Questions or comments from board members? We'll take a roll call vote.
Flynn?
Yes.
Klevin?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Lunn?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. At this point, are there, and Dr. Hodak, I'll ask this question of you before I make the next motion. Are there groups of these that you think we could combine, or are we doing fine, board members? We're 5 down. Any thoughts? Proceed as, yes, Mr. Palmasino?
I'm just wondering if we do follow the format the city does where we pull out the ones people want to talk about, set them aside, and we take care of all the others that we're all okay with, get that done. We may be able to knock off quite a few and only have 3 or 4 that we have more discussion about.
Sure. So then I'll open that up to board members. Are there policies remaining from 6 through 22? Those last 2 we'll take separately, but 6 to 22. I think I already heard BDD from Ms. Flynn to discuss separately. Are there other policies? And again, I'm looking at on your list from GACB through the end of the list, which is the compensation and expenses. So any other policies that any board members wish to take out and discuss separately from that list? Mr. Klevin?
FF, please.
FF. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Klevin. Are there other policies that you wish to take out and discuss separately? I want to make sure we... Okay, so again, we'll take out FF and take that separately. BDD will be a separate discussion. Any other policies from the remaining on the list? And then I do intend to talk about the rescinding of 5640, and then the final FFK-BR will be a separate discussion. So one final time, board members. Okay, so I move that we approve GACB, GACE, FFK, ACCB, FGA, DCCA, FFE, FCAA, DDBD, GABE, BCAA, BCBA, BBA, KAAC, and GAAD as written or amended on first reading and waive the second reading. It's been a second by Dr. Lunn. Any discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Klevin?
Yes.
Larson? Lunn? Manley? Palmasino? Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. I would now, since we've taken this out, perhaps we can have some discussion before a motion on FF, and we'll start with you if you don't mind, Mr. Klevin, since that was your request. So we'll take your comments first.
Scrolling back.
Sure. Yep, take your time.
There just seem to be several changes to it. And I just wanted to kind of make sure that we understand why the changes are necessary. And frankly, I'd also like to be sure we're not overly punitive. You know, so I just think, especially because of darn it. I'm no rock star. I'll never get used to a microphone. Just to make sure we talk about it, because there are a lot of changes, and to make sure we're not being overly punitive here for, you know, and I hate to use the word normal behavior, but things that don't require law enforcement action. I don't have any particular concerns here. I just want to have a description of why all the changes.
Any response from Policy Review Committee members first? Dr. Lunn.
I think the changes are based on House Bill 1328, and North Dakota School Board Association took that bill that got passed and put it into policy format. So I think that's what you're seeing is results of the law that was changed through the state legislation.
Anything to add, Dr. Hodak?
And just to once again point out that, as Dr. Lund said, this law became effective as of August 1st. So we've got to be on the ball and have it in our policies and recognize it.
My cursory notes, and I'm no legal scholar, but House Bill 1328 talks about referring students to juvenile court once the district exhausts all of its other school discipline policies. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who maybe followed that more closely than I did.
I would just say that everything in blueprint on the second page is verbatim from House Bill 1328.
Any other questions or comments about Policy FF from board members? We'll take a roll call vote.
Who made the motion and second on this one?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we've just had discussion.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you for the correction, Mr. Clevin. It has now been moved by Mr. Clevin to adopt FF as amended. Thank you. And a second by Mr. Palmasino. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Well, before that, I appreciate the fact there's a lot of may and consider language in here. So there's a lot of latitude for just wisdom here. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you. Also, thank you for keeping me on track. I appreciate that, Mr. Clevin. We'll take a roll call vote.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Manley? Lund?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Flynn? Anderson?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Now on to policy BDD. Perhaps we'll follow the same format, if you don't mind, Ms. Flynn. Comments about this policy, and then we'll perhaps offer some background as the Policy Review Committee. We'll open it up to discussion from board members, and we'll go from there. So, Ms. Flynn, do you want to start us out, or would you like to? Okay, thank you.
I have just a couple comments, and I did get some clarification from Dave today, so thanks for chatting with me about some things. I am mostly just concerned about waiving the second reading of this, because I think there could be some extra work and conversation done. A couple of points that I had thought about was, I've been on the board since 2016. Some have been on the board longer than I have. And the compensation has increased very minimally since my time, and probably more minimally since others. I know that this, role on the school board is not simply about compensation. I think many of us would agree that we would certainly do this work on our own time, but there's an election coming up next year, and I think that in order for us to get ahead of reducing some barriers, when I have gone out during different election cycles and talk to people about running for school board, some of them, especially with young families. And it's no secret that I'm the only mom with young kids in the district on the board. And so I certainly understand that I come from that perspective. But I've had to use babysitters because of conflicts with my husband and I many times, and can relatively afford them. But I know that that's a big barrier for individuals who have resisted trying to come onto the board because of the compensation piece. I know in 2016, I think we started talking about it like the year after, or 2018 when I got off, or when I was on the board. That was the first time we talked about it, and the appetite then was very minimal. I think at some point we raised the president's salary to be a bit larger because their time commitment was larger. But in comparison to other school districts, and I know it's not apples to apples, so certainly the way other people operate is maybe not one and the same as we do, but it's always a factor to take into consideration. We were the lowest then, and I would think that we're probably still the lowest and compared to, let's just say, the big five. I also think that the cycle of the board, I've probably brought up a few times that like this is something that we maybe should talk about, maybe not an official request, but it feels like we're just kicking the can down the road, in my opinion, to delay the conversation. I think we should get ahead of the election next year so people who are wanting to join the school board know what their salary is, and that we've made an attempt to at least make effort to dialogue about the conversation about compensation. And I think when we talk about as a board, obviously it was talked about in policy committee, and this is nothing against the vice president role, but I think to single out one leadership position instead of talking about it as the board as a whole, doesn't align with how we've had other conversations about compensation with bargaining groups as well. So I think that we can kick it back to policy committee and they could possibly come up with a solution, but delaying the conversation about board compensation, I don't support. And I'm not saying I wouldn't support an increase for the vice president. I just don't like the part about delaying the conversation. There's nothing that says we can't backdate anything. This isn't like in law that we have to waive the reading and we have a timeline. But I think that there's room for the policy committee to create solutions about looking at, do we increase compensation, do we not? But I do think we could get ahead of like a 2-year cycle, essentially, where we can get ahead of an election, board members come in, they're there for a year, and then we put it on the agenda annually. But especially if we kick the can down the road for next year, I feel like new board members coming in are then going to have to decide on their own compensation. I just don't think that timeline is maybe the most appropriate. So I would like to see this go back to the policy committee to have a broader conversation about board compensation as a whole, not just one leadership position, and to make a decision sooner than later rather than delaying it till next year.
Thank you for that. We'll go to the Policy Review Committee members first. Dr. Lund.
That's the problem with looking at minutes, is we had a 20-minute conversation that the three of us said about the exact same thing you said, is that we think that compensation should be increased, but what we thought is we need to get feedback from the full board on it, and that's why. But I think the other sentiment, at least I've got, I don't know about the other two, is I have some issues of increasing my own salary the very first year. So we had talked about, well, maybe what we should do is get feedback from all of the board and then go back and look at, okay, change the policy and increase it as of July 1, 2026, the salary will be increased to this amount. So it's hard to put all that in minutes, but I think the three of us were on the same page, similar to what you were saying, and we talked about the same things. Young families with young children, we certainly, and I made the comment at the committee, we don't want 9 Eric Lunds on the board who are retired or semi-retired. We want a cross-section and diversity on the board because that's going to be our best board. So I think we're on the same page. What we wanted to, I think, was to get feedback from other board members about what should we do. And Dave was talking about we should try and do it similar to we do most contracts is, okay, well, in 2026, 27, it'll go to this. And then, so 2-year cycle similar to what we do with all the other work groups. I don't think we're far off. But the thing that I don't think was clear is we wanted the feedback from the whole board. And,
Dr. Hodak, anything to add?
No, basically, that's what we said, we better go back to the board as a whole to give you our ideas and then to hear from the board as to what the board felt that we should do. We did look at, Brandon put together or brought to us the board compensation information that was compiled by the Fargo business manager. And so we looked at, Mandan's, Bismarck's, Minot's, and such. And I do believe that I made the comment that we're not in their shoes. So, when you look at Bismarck getting $9,000 a year, what do they do for that and such? So we just went back and forth and we just decided to bring it forth this way. And looking at the way we negotiate with others within the district, that's where that 2-year came up. And so that would grant us possibly a 2-year period time between now and 2026 to get set for whatever the board would like to do. But I do want to echo as well, we did discuss the fact about new people wanting to get on the board that have children, and if they needed, daycare, or what would be the barrier to not. And if this was a barrier, then we would want to address it.
I just have one other thing to add, and then we'll open it up to all board members for how best to proceed. I am intrigued by the idea of, in whatever guardrails or language want to be put in place of having this go back to Policy Review Committee. I would like to see a decision made in advance of whatever the first day is of declaring candidacy for, the election. And I don't know exactly what that date is, but it's usually if I remember from 4 years ago, a February date, but that, along with the posting of here's the form to fill out and and the board has already passed, for 26, 27 and 27, 28, this is going to be the compensation. So it isn't something that, the board's working on it or the board's, talking about it, or it might be this or might not be this, but that it's concrete, for everyone to know going in. And I don't know if this is possible either, but something in the policy that says exactly to your point, that, okay, then the Policy Review Committee will meet by November of every odd-numbered year, so that by a December meeting of every odd-numbered year, even if that board chooses to keep it the same, at least it's in policy that they're talking about it, because there's never a good time to talk about money. There just isn't. And so if there's never a good time, then the time is now. And to set up future boards for success in this regard is to say, this is a part of the regular cycle of doing board work. We've got this for lots of other parts of our board work, is to say, guess what? You're going to have this conversation in advance of same people, same board members, new candidates, new potential board members, making that decision to campaign, knowing that the board has talked about compensation. So however that looks or lands, I'd be intrigued by that possibility. Other comments from board members who haven't weighed in yet? Yeah, sure, Dr. Lund.
So I think the intention is let's get feedback from the whole board and then go back at a subsequent meeting and revise the policy further to look at that compensation. Since I think the three of us were on the same page that we didn't want to increase everybody's board compensation for 25, 26, but for 26, 27. So we've got some time. I agree. We'd want to do it before anybody looks at whether they're going to run for school board or not. But I just think we wanted to get the feedback of other people's, because I even brought up the weird idea of why don't we just tie it to a percentage of what the average district employee got. If the average district employee got 2.3%, why don't we tie it to that or something like that? I mean, I wanted to hear other people's thoughts about how to do that, so.
Other
Thank you.
thoughts from board members? This is the feedback the Policy Review Committee is looking for. So, Mr. Clevin?
Well, I think that 2-year cycle makes a lot of sense. And as far as deadline for that, when's our annual budget due? You know, like, that seems like a natural time to define all those compensation things.
That would be October. Is that correct, Mr. Bombach?
Yeah, preliminary budget needs to go to the county auditor August 10th, and then the final October 10th.
So, I mean, that just seems like a good deadline for anything financial. And the 2-year cycle seems to make sense. And a cap. Like, I think what Dr. Lund was saying, some cap, so there's always a guardrail from stopping people from making selfish decisions. Like, I think that makes sense, and then we're just anywhere from 0 to the cap in the cycle. I think those ideas make sense to me.
Other thoughts, feedback from board members? Mr. Larson?
I think I did a quick Google search, and it looks like Fargo, West Fargo, Minot, Bismarck, all publish. So if we learn what the info is from, similar sized entities, then we'd have a pretty good starting point. And I don't think if we do it 2.3%, and if we're the lowest by a wide margin, we should maybe do a bump up and figure it out. I personally don't care that much, but I think that people deserve to be compensated properly too. If I had to pay for, a babysitter for $100 to come and sit here with you folks, I'd probably resent you pretty quick. I'm just saying.
It's not in the school board norms, but I appreciate your honesty. I know it's not listed specifically, but thank you, Mr. Larson, for your honesty. Dr. Lund?
We've got that information from the Fargo business manager, so I don't know, Cindy can send that out to all the board members, and then you could maybe look at it and give us some, written feedback or something, right? Or we could come back to another meeting and get it, but we've got that information. It's from the Fargo business manager, so.
Other feedback, thoughts, comments from board members?
I would just like to maybe delay doing anything with this and just send it back to policy committee.
Is there anything to add to that? Any certain, I understand sending it back. Cindy can let us know the next meeting date of the Policy Review Committee, but any other guardrails ascribed to that? Any other, we want this to come back before the board at a certain time so that a final decision, just so that I want to make sure we take the next step and then the next step so it isn't just wallowing in committee work. So perhaps we hear the date first and then we talk about how best to proceed.
September 11th.
September 11th is the next scheduled meeting of the Policy Review Committee.
My thought would be to have a solution of a compensation increase and a timeline. I don't know if others would support necessarily increase, and I don't want to force the hand of the policy committee to say you must come back with an increase, but I think that's, given where we've come since 2016, I think that we're due as a board and getting ahead of next year's cycle, especially with the economy and where things have gone, or maybe a reason why there isn't an increase, or, I trust that they can logically come up with what that number looks like based on the data that committee has, and a cycle of how we can talk about that.
Mr. Palmasino?
I guess I would agree with the policy as written for this school year. And then we look at 2026, 27 to adjust the compensation for all board members. Because I do agree with that the vice president is putting in more time than president. And instead of delaying it, the school year is almost ready to start. And I think we knew going into this school year, this is what we were going to get paid.
Other thoughts or comments, Dr. Hodak?
First of all, I would echo that we would like to have, if this appears to be going back to our committee, any of those parameters or thoughts from you, especially the one, about the vice president and the president getting paid a little bit more, or if there's other parameters that you're thinking about. Because once you get this board compensation sheet, you will see that some of the districts talk about, that they only have 5 board members. Some of them talk about the meetings, the amount of meetings that a board member has and goes to, and all of those sorts of things. So I think that would be very important to us. And then as well as what you've heard. So I'm wondering if some homework would be that the board members would get this, and then before we meet, that they would provide some immediate feedback to us. Look at this, discuss this, so that we have that in front of us.
I just want to interject. I don't believe we can do that outside of the regular meeting of the school board.
Okay.
Certainly, we can ask board members to receive resources and do homework, but I'll look to Cindy, but I don't believe that we can solicit feedback in any other fashion other than at the meeting of the board. So what I would suggest, unless anyone wants to move this timeline up regarding this conversation of going back to committee, is, our meeting will be September 11th, again, unless we want to schedule something else. And then we could bring back for the first of 2 readings our, suggested policy revision. And that would give us robust conversation at first reading, that next regularly scheduled school board meeting after September 11th. And that would still give us time to have a second reading, amending, changing, revising, adopting policy. And I think, and I'm not looking at the calendar because I'm processing this, that we would still, we'd certainly make it before the candidacy deadlines, early winter, but also possibly that final budget. That final budget, though, is for the 25-26 school year. So if our policy is talking about beginning July 1st, that's not really a deadline. I mean, it is and it isn't. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, thank you. I was just looking at the calendar, thinking that same thing. If there were changes to take place on the fiscal year 26, as in this current budget, we might get a little far behind that. As in the next school board meeting after the dates you just said, September 11th, the next school board meeting would be September 22nd, which would be the day where the budget's considered. So if it were for the following year, plenty of time to work that in.
Yeah, so any decision about this current year, it's becoming apparent, will have to take place tonight, whether that's, as outlined in the memo, or we leave it as, this school year's already been decided. The Policy Review Committee is tasked with coming up with a recommendation on September 11th, comes back to the board for first reading on September 22nd. Robust conversation, you've all been provided resources, and then a second reading and adoption at our first October meeting, which again gives folks plenty of time to look ahead to potential candidacy, campaign, election, reorganization on July 1st. Is that a fair characterization about one potential timeline? I'm not trying to steer us in any one direction, but is that one way we could proceed? Ms. Flynn?
If possible, it's possible to backdate pay, correct?
Yes.
So I don't know that we need to decide. I think my issue is just taking one position out and deciding on that now without having another conversation about, you've got feedback, go back, here's what we, it's not that I don't support the additional leadership position increase, it's just that I don't think that taking one leadership position and making a decision without talking about the whole is appropriate. I think we should do it all in the same or have a reason for why we would consider. Certainly those roles do a lot, and there's a lot of work put into that. They're not one and the same, just like we're not one and the same board as opposed to Bismarck. So I think there's just some extra considerations, and this is the first time we're hearing it. And so, I think giving feedback, it's important to then take it and let everyone process. And if the committee decides, yes, we're still going to increase the vice president and the board votes on it, it's possible to say effective, as well. So I just can't support doing one without the other in terms of just more information collecting and conversation.
Other comments? Dr. Lund?
Might I suggest just a slight modification of your timeline? We have an August 25th school board meeting, do we not? It's on my calendar at least. Why couldn't we get the feedback from board members on August 25th at the board meeting? We'll be doing it at an open meeting. We can get the feedback, get them the information they need, get feedback on the 25th, and then when we meet on September 11th, we can finalize a policy to bring it back to the next school board meeting. That way we'll get the feedback. We won't skirt any open meeting issues and stuff.
Could that be added under recommendations for discussion for August 25th? Would board members be amenable to that? Okay. Is this enough for the policy review committee to go on? Dr. Lund, Dr. Hodek, I'm looking at the two of you. Does this feel like we wanted to come back to the board for feedback? Is there anything that you feel like we're still missing, or points of view we haven't considered, board members we haven't heard from?
The only one that there was a correction on this was that we're with shall or keep, that we wanted to make sure that the, go ahead, Dr. Lund.
Yeah, the third paragraph, that keep should have been kept.
We must keep.
But we can fix that at our September 11th meeting. No, I'm comfortable with the outlined plan.
I'll just ask one final time, any other board members wishing to offer feedback, another point of view that hasn't been considered, any other conversation for tonight, recognizing that we're not, at least it doesn't sound to me like we're taking action on policy BDD tonight. So if that understanding is incorrect, please someone speak up. But anything else in this conversation? Yes, Mr. Clevin?
Just for point of order and kind of, maintaining a meeting, do we need to take an action formally on this to table it for discussion?
So we wouldn't use the language of tabling because there's a whole set of circumstances then to take something back off the table. But we could entertain a motion to send this policy BDD back to the Policy Review Committee and add it to the agenda for discussion on August 25th, something to that effect. Is that clear enough, Cindy?
Mm-hmm. I would make such a motion.
Okay, so there's been a motion by Mr. Clevin to send this feedback back to the Policy Review Committee for its work at the September 11th meeting, and to add under items for discussion on August 25th, and with, again, the understanding that board members will be provided resources in advance of that discussion. So that's the motion. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Hodek. Mr. Clevin, did I misrepresent your?
So there's a motion and a second, that's fine, but I wonder if it shouldn't be a recommendation for action at the next board meeting.
So to clarify, there wouldn't be anything to act on because on August 25th, the Policy Review Committee would not have met. The action, at least in my understanding, would be after that next meeting of the Policy Review Committee on September 11th.
Then the motion as written.
Okay, so that's been, it's a motion on the floor by Mr. Clevin and a second by Dr. Hodek. Cindy, do you have that motion clearly enough? Is there any conversation or discussion about the motion on the floor? We'll take a roll call vote.
Anderson?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Manley.
Yes.
Palmasino.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. And if you remember, we've got 2 left. Let me scroll back up here. My computer went to sleep. The conversation was so robust that my laptop timed out. So now we are, there we go, just had to find the right page. So I would move that we rescind policy 5640 because it has been replaced by policy ACG.
Second.
It's been seconded by Dr. Hodek. Is there any discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Manley.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hodak.
Yes.
Clevin.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Palmasino.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. I would move that we adopt FFK-BR as amended and to make it an official board regulation of the district.
Second.
So a second by Dr. Hodek. Is there any discussion on FFK-BR? We'll take a roll call vote.
Lund.
Yes.
Palmasino. Flynn. Anderson.
Yes.
Clevin.
Yes.
Manley.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Hodak.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Thank you for all of your work on agenda item 5D, everyone. We're moving on to 5E, consideration of proposals for gasoline for vehicles. Mr. Bombach.
President Berger, members of the board, each year we take and advertise for proposals related to gasoline for vehicles. We will take a look at a full weeks of different prices and then also consider any discount at the pump. And you'll see the results here. The Gateway Cenex came in with a deeper discount at the pump as well as better pricing over that time period. So they were selected as absolutely the better of the 2 pricings available to us, but they don't have quite the same reach. Circle K can facilitate refueling across the state or across a broader region. So the administrative recommendations to accept both of those proposals with the priority of in-town refueling to Gateway Cenex.
Questions for Mr. Bombach? I would seek a motion that we accept the proposals from B1 Inc. doing business as Gateway Cenex for priority in-town refueling and Circle K Holiday Corporation for other in-town and out-of-town refueling. It's been moved by Mr. Palmasino. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Manley. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Hodak.
Yes.
Clevin.
Yes.
Manley.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Flynn. Lund.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Palmasino.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 5F, consideration of proposals for filters for HVAC units district-wide. Mr. Elwine?
Thank you, President Berger. Each year we go out for bids for filtration for all of our HVAC units across the district. This year we went out and we received 1 written proposal. We had 1 other interested party that did not submit, but it was Techniques for a total cost of $105,178.15. This is no increase from last year, so that was a good thing for us. So this just covers our air handling units and anything within our HVAC systems that requires a filter. So the administrative recommendation is to approve Techniques Filtration as a supplier of district HVAC filters. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions from board members for Mr. Elwine? Mr. Clevin?
So the total cost did not change from last year?
Correct.
Other questions from Mr. Elwine? It's been moved by Dr. Lund to approve Techniques Filtration as the supplier for district HVAC filters. Is there a second? Mr. Clevin? Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Flynn. Hodak.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Manley.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Clevin.
Yes.
Palmasino.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6A, announcements. Are there any announcements? Yes, Mr. Larson.
I missed the opportunity earlier, but Dr. Lund did say to trust lawyers, so let's do that.
I have one you probably know, but this is for the public writ large. Career Impact Academy ribbon cutting at 1 o'clock this Wednesday, August 13th, and open houses, tours, opportunity to ask questions from staff members at the Career Impact Academy, all taking place this Wednesday, August 13th. It's an exciting time for the district. Mr. Elwine?
Yeah, and just for point of clarification, the ribbon cutting ceremony is at 1 o'clock, and then we have an open house from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Are there any other announcements? 6B, board requests for future consideration. Anything that you wish added to a future agenda? 6C, school board meeting norms. Mr. Clevin, how did we do?
Well done. Have to get through in committee. You guys did a great job on being prepared.
Thank you. So as you can see, we are now at 6D. We're going to recess for travel time to Valley Middle School, at which point we'll reconvene this meeting and have a tour of that building as well. And so upon arrival, just linger close. We'll wait for all board members as well as administration and staff, and then we'll reconvene this meeting. It will still be a part of the regular meeting of the school board for tonight. So please limit your discussion even at the tour to the topic at hand. Yes, did you have something? Yes.
Just parking would be on the street out in front of the New Valley Middle School. If there's no room there, then it would be in the University tennis court parking lot.
Anything else related to the tour? Okay, so we are in recess.